I used to think family meals were where people connected, not where they got publicly humiliated. But that Sunday afternoon, between cold quiche and empty stories, I realized something. My family never considered me one of their own. They called it brunch. I called it an execution by words. Every sentence thrown at me felt like a knife hidden behind a fake smile. I came with gratitude and silence, but I left with the truth in hand. And just 3 sentences from me were enough to shatter the play they had rehearsed for nearly 20 years. That was the day I sat down for a meal with my mother, stepfather, and half-brother, after 3 months of being allowed to return home. The suburban house in Spokane hadn't changed. Quiet, spotless, to the point of coldness, and saturated with control. My mother, Cynthia, dressed like she was headed to a board meeting, though she was just at the dinner table. She poured champagne into crystal glasses and nodded at me like a manager, checking on the night shift. To her right was her new husband, Ted, a man I could never call dad, and to her left sat Tyler, my half-brother, the prince of this house. I hadn't even taken a bite of the egg bake when my mother spoke, her tone flat like she was addressing a premium yoga class. Victoria, I've thought long and hard. I honestly don't understand why you keep pretending you matter. I heard every word clearly. No laughter, no sign she was joking. Just a shameless statement, delivered with the emotional tone of a weather report. Tyler laughed, a screech like a rusted metal door. To be honest, sometimes I forget you even live here, like you're a shadow. I didn't respond. I didn't cry. I didn't blush. Instead, I set my fork down, picked up my orange juice, and gently tapped the rim with a butter knife. Clink. This won't take long, just 3 sentences, don't worry. The entire table paused, my mother narrowed her eyes, Tyler looked up, and Ted raised an eyebrow like he was waiting for a spectacle. I looked my mother straight in the eye. Sentence 1, copy for you. I pulled a matte black folder from my purse. No logo, no label, just a tight stack of paper. I slid it across the table until it landed in front of Cynthia. No one moved. No one even breathed. Ted leaned forward slightly, curious. Tyler stared at it like it was a new menu. But my mother, Cynthia? She didn't touch it right away. She looked at me like she was trying to read my face, searching for signs of the rebellion she once knew. But this time, she found nothing. Finally, she opened the folder. Page 1. Page 3. I saw her lips press tight. Her hands began to tremble. Ted turned pale within seconds. Tyler was silent, his fork still hovering mid-air. The last page. You bitch, Victoria, she hissed. Barely audible, but I heard it loud and clear. Ted's chair scraped harshly across the floor. You said you deleted all that, he shouted. I stood. No drama. I adjusted my sweater and slung my bag over my shoulder. Oh, the originals have been sent to the right people, this is just a keepsake. I walked away from the table, leaving behind air frozen like stone. No apologies, no farewell hugs, just bitter silence and 3 pale faces stripped bare. And that was only the beginning. I didn't return because I needed shelter, I returned because I needed the truth. 3 months before that fateful brunch, I walked through my mother's door with a tired face and a convincing voice. I told her I'd just lost my job at a law firm in Portland. That rent had become too much, that I needed time to get back on my feet. Cynthia didn't hug me. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyeing me like a second-hand item. Fine, Victoria, but I'm not a rescue center, you hear me? If you're here, you're responsible. Electric, water, trash. Split evenly. Only room left is the laundry room. And please, don't complain. Tyler needs quiet to focus. Tyler? Focusing? A 22-year-old living off our mother, no job, no plan, camped out in the living room turned art studio filled with empty soda cans and frozen steak. But I nodded. No arguments, no pushback. I just needed in. The laundry room was at the end of the first-floor hallway. It used to be a storage closet. Now it barely fit a twin bed, a rotting wooden dresser, and a dryer that rattled like a freight train. Every night, when it rumbled, I closed my eyes and imagined I was in a train car, heading far away. But before I could leave, I needed to reclaim what had been stolen from me at age 12. I remember the afternoon vividly. I was eating popcorn, watching cartoons, when my mother turned off the TV and held out her phone. "If you take her, I'll kill you both." That was the message, supposedly from my father. I remembered the shock. It felt like the earth tilted off its axis. I loved my dad, a quiet man, always there when I needed him, who once made up bedtime stories just for me. But one message erased it all. And my mother, the master director, played the role of the protective mom to perfection. She filed for full custody. No calls, no letters, no contact. I believed her. For years, I believed. Until one night, at 23, I couldn't sleep. I retraced the words in that message, and something felt off. My father hated conflict. He cried when I scraped my knee. He once said safety first with a face so serious it was comical. How could someone like that write a death threat? I started to doubt, and from doubt, I acted. I wasn't a hacker, but I knew the law. I learned to dig through financial records. I got certified as a private investigator in Oregon, then took extra courses in digital tracking. The more I learned, the closer I got to the truth. But I needed physical evidence. And I knew it was still somewhere in that house. So I came back. Every day, I cleaned, did laundry, acted like an unpaid maid. But at night, while everyone slept, I searched. Old closets, boxes of toys, hard drives, laptops, even the dusty old printer in the garage. I left no stone unturned. Some nights, I thought I was losing it. But I kept going, because the doubt had grown deeper than anything else. And a week before brunch, I found it. An old laptop, hidden behind winter towels in the living room cabinet. The password was the name of the old cat Mom used to have, Muffin 1992. I didn't know whether to laugh or shake. Inside the hard drive, I found a folder labeled Legal Misc. And inside a Word document. The file name. I opened it, and I froze. The ooby and skinny dipping. It was the message. Unsent. Just a draft. And worse. It had margin notes. This line too much? Add unstable father? Another file contained bank statements, with recurring transfers to a shady company. Registered under Ted. What I had uncovered wasn't just a lie, it was a calculated conspiracy. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. I printed everything. 3 copies, one for me, one for the attorney, one I saved for brunch. And that brunch wasn't an outburst. It was a declaration of war, a slap made of truth. But it was just the opening shot. I still had a lot to do, and they had no idea the real storm had only just begun. I don't have many happy childhood memories. Not because I forgot, but because there was hardly anything worth remembering. In our house, Ryan was always the sunshine, and I was the shadow. Every bit of attention, every compliment, every soft gesture went to him. Ryan wasn't particularly smart or polite. He was simply loved, pampered, protected, praised, like every breath he took was heaven sent. I, on the other hand, was the extra, the leftover, the daughter of the man my mother no longer wanted to remember. When I was 7 years old, I spent weeks drawing a family portrait for a school project called My Family. I carefully colored every detail: my mom's brown hair, my dad's black-rimmed glasses, our dog Milo, and a grinning Ryan. I folded it, tied a ribbon, and placed it on Mom's pillow, hoping it would make her happy. She picked it up, looked for 3 seconds, and said without emotion, "That's cute, but I've told you, you should focus more on math. Drawing won't get you anywhere." That same week, Ryan brought home a printed certificate that said, "Recognized for being a good listener." Mom framed it and hung it in the living room, like a proud display. I got used to birthday presents from discount stores, usually leftover adult items. One year, I got a sweater that still smelled like mothballs. The tag marked, medium size. Men. Meanwhile, Ryan had a birthday party at a bowling center, with a 3-tier cake and flashing lights. I stood nearby, holding gift boxes and cleaning up trash. No one asked if I wanted to play. Christmas wasn't much different. I once got a ceramic mug that said, "Best daughter ever," with a $3 price sticker still on the bottom. Mom said it was a gift with meaning, not value. Ryan got a smartwatch and a trip to Las Vegas to relieve stress. I tried to win her affection, helped her cook, cleaned my room, got an A in history. No one noticed. But if Ryan got up on time 2 days in a row, Mom posted on Facebook about his amazing maturity. No matter how hard I tried, I was overlooked, unmentioned, forgotten. I used to think it was my fault. That maybe I really was less than. Maybe I didn't deserve love. Some nights I looked in the mirror, repeating in my head, "Just try a little harder. They'll see you." But every morning was the same. Mom still only asked, "What does Ryan want for breakfast?" And me? I fended for myself. One time I had a fever of 102 degrees, lying limp in bed. I called for Mom. She was downstairs baking for the PTA. I heard her voice echo up. "Victoria, you're not a child anymore. Don't make a big deal out of it." When Ryan caught a mild cold a week later, the house turned into a crisis zone. Mom made ginger tea, applied warm towels, and called a private doctor. I got tap water and an expired Tylenol. Even outside our home, being the daughter of Cynthia and Ted meant nothing. They always introduced Ryan as the family's little pride. I was just the older sister. A footnote to the main story. I once hoped to be treated fairly, but all I got were comparisons, skeptical stares every time I tried to prove myself. One teacher even asked me, "You're really Ryan's sister? You two are so different." I smiled, the kind of smile I later learned to hide pain behind. I'm not telling this to complain. I'm telling it because all of it led me to that moment. When I held the folder in my hands, watched them, confused, afraid, and for the first time, silent before me. No insults, no mocking laughter, just vacant stares, realizing that the forgotten daughter had awakened. And I wasn't dreaming. I remembered every stare, every word, every dismissal. The way people remember sentences waiting to be served. My childhood may have been taken from me, but I still had adulthood. Who knows? I remember the exact day everything inside me collapsed. I was 12, sitting on the carpet in the living room, eating cold popcorn, watching an old episode of Kim Possible. The one thing that still made the world feel okay. Ryan was upstairs gaming. Mom walked in from the kitchen, still holding her phone, her face stiff with something serious. She turned off the TV without warning, blocking the screen. I hadn't even asked what was happening when she held out her phone and said coldly, "You need to see this, so you understand what kind of man your father really is." On the screen was a message, just one line. "If you take her, I'll kill you both." I read it 3 times. Each time, my heart sank deeper. My ears rang, my mouth went dry. I couldn't breathe. My dad? The man who used to carry me around the lake, wear a Santa hat and lip-sync Christmas songs to make me laugh? Who tucked handwritten notes in my backpack just to say, "I love you"? No. Impossible. "He's dangerous, Vic," Mom said, her tone as flat as a moral lesson. I always sensed something was wrong. This message just confirms it. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect you, understand?" I nodded. Not because I understood, but because I was too stunned to do anything else. She sat next to me, wrapped her arm around me like I'd survived a disaster. I froze, feeling like I was turning to ice from the inside. "From now on, you don't have to see him again. I'm filing for full custody, I'm doing what's right for you. She rubbed my back like she was saving me. And I just sat there, mind blank, eyes glued to the frayed edge of the old rug. My dad was erased from my life in one afternoon. No calls, no letters, no explanations. Every time I brought him up, Mom went rigid, then changed the subject or told me I was dwelling on the past. When I asked if I could write a letter to say hi, she gave me a glare sharp enough to cut skin. Victoria, I've told you, we do not contact people who threaten our family's lives. I once tried to sneak a letter. The first time I got caught, Mom tore it up right in front of me. No yelling, no insults, just one sentence. You think this is a game? Message received. I never mentioned Dad again. I learned to lock away every memory, to hide the nights I cried missing his deep voice, the times he took me to the park and said, "Whenever you need me, I'll always be here." But he wasn't here anymore. Not because he left, but because he had been swiped out of my world with one flick of a screen. That message didn't just take my father, it stole my childhood. After that, I was no longer cheerful Victoria who loved to laugh and draw pink horses. I became guarded, skeptical and silent. I learned to walk without making noise, to say only what people wanted to hear. And most of all, I learned to hide everything well. Years later, I still wondered if the memory of my father was something I had imagined. Maybe I had idolized him because I was starved for affection. But every time I saw another dad hug his daughter at the grocery store, I felt a dull cut inside. A pain no logic could erase. I tried to ignore it. I really did. Until I was 23, and one sleepless night, I combed through every memory, every detail, every buried fragment, and I realized one thing. That message never smelled real. It was too perfect, too theatrical. And it didn't sound like the man who once taught me that true strength is knowing how to forgive. I retraced the entire sequence. The message, the court, the complete severing, the one-sided stories, from my mother. And then I asked the question I hadn't dared think for over 10 years. What if it was fake? What if my mother Rosai made it all up? That question was the first seed of defiance. And from that seed, I began the journey that led me back to that house. Living in a cramped laundry room, digging through old hard drives, turning over every digital trace to uncover the truth. I don't know what hurt more. Losing my father? Or realizing I'd been tricked into losing him. But I swore, even if I had to face the past and the present, I would expose the first lie that collapsed my childhood like a house of cards. And I had started. There was no turning back. I wrote and deleted that message at least 10 times. Each time I typed, "Hi, not sure if this is still your number." My hands shook. My eyes burned. Not from sadness, but from fear. "What if?" he replied, in the same tone as that message from years ago. What if every good memory I had of him was just the invention of a wounded mind? What if I was wrong? But the 11th time, I didn't delete it. I hit send. And during the 15 minutes that followed, my heart pounded like a funeral drum. Then the message came. Just 5 words. "I've been waiting for you." I broke down crying. No sobs, just tears spilling like someone had opened a faucet. I didn't know if it was relief or the soundless echo of hearing that voice again. Not in sound, but it was him. Still gentle, still kind. 3 days later, I met my father at a small park in Spokane. We sat on a wooden bench beneath a maple tree, shedding its fall leaves. I didn't say anything for the first 5 minutes. I just looked at him. And he looked back at me. Eyes lined with age, but still as warm as I remembered. "I don't know if I should hug you or give you space," he said with a soft smile. I nodded. "Can I have a hug?" And when he wrapped his arms around my shoulders, all those memories I thought were gone came rushing back. The familiar scent of sweat, his warm breath, his slow heartbeat. All of it exactly as I remembered. Nothing fake. Nothing dangerous. When we sat again, with 2 paper coffee cups, I asked the question I'd kept inside for 11 years. Did you really write that message? He shook his head. No hesitation, no defensiveness. I never wrote anything like that. And I never intended to harm you. Never. I looked at him, trying to find even a flicker of deceit in his eyes or his gestures. But all I saw was real sorrow. The sorrow of a father who lost his child to a lie he couldn't undo. When Mom showed me that message I was 12, I believed her. I was scared of you. And then, I stopped thinking. I understand, he whispered. I thought about fighting, going to court. But my lawyer said if your mom had evidence of a threat, I wouldn't stand a chance. I didn't have the money for experts. And most of all, I didn't want you dragged into a legal battle. I just hoped that one day, you'd ask. I nodded, throat tight. And now I'm asking. That was the moment I decided I needed to find the truth, not to punish anyone, but to restore his name. And mine. The child who had been robbed of the chance to be loved properly. I'd returned to Portland and quit my law firm job, a job I'd only held to get by. I poured all my time into learning. I enrolled in a private investigator training program in Oregon. I studied data recovery, financial tracing, digital forensics. I worked day and night, drank coffee like water, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing something that actually mattered. The private investigator license came after 6 months. And then I started working. Small cases at first. Cheating spouses, background checks, missing persons. Each case was a puzzle piece. Each clue I uncovered brought me closer to finding justice for my father. I also quietly gathered everything related to my parents' divorce. Court files, hearing notes, witness lists. One detail froze me in place. The message, "If you take her, I'll kill you both," was never extracted from any telecom system. It was just a screenshot provided by my mother. No message logs. No carrier confirmation. Just a photo. Something easily faked if you're cruel enough and know a bit of tech. I didn't say anything to Dad. I just made him one promise. When I have enough evidence, I'll tell you. But I want to find it myself, no one else. And he simply nodded. Like he always did when I was little. Every time I asked, "Do you believe in me, Dad?" This time, he didn't need to say it. His eyes answered for him. And I knew that after all these years, I was no longer the quiet little girl on the living room carpet. I was Victoria. And this time, I was the one asking the questions. I always believed that if I held on long enough, the truth couldn't stay buried forever. But I never expected the truth would be hiding right under the roof where I grew up. Tucked inside the dust and arrogance of people who thought no one would be smart enough to uncover the past. After 3 weeks in that cramped laundry room, listening to the dryer rumble every night, and pretending to be a failure looking for shelter, I finally found what I needed. An old laptop, stuffed behind a pile of winter towels in the upstairs wooden cabinet. A spot no one had touched, since Ryan moved into his self-proclaimed art studio. The machine was dusty, the hinges rusted, but it powered on. The password was a joke, Markson forever. I didn't know whether to scoff or laugh. I dug through the hard drive. Main folder. Legal_backup. Inside were Word docs, PDFs, and some scanned documents. I opened them one by one, carefully, leaving no trace. And then, I saw it. And message, _draft_V, to docx. It was that message. Not a photo. Not a copy. But a draft. Typed on my mother's personal computer. The same chilling sentence appeared like a dagger to my memory. "If you take her, I'll kill you both." But what sent a shiver down my spine wasn't the message itself. It was the editing notes in the track changes. Should we add a clearer threat? And down the emotion. Needs to sound more final. Someone had edited that message like it was a movie script. I opened another file, custodyplan_notes.ph. A draft of the custody agreement Mom used in court. But advice. One comment read. If the message is accepted, attorney says we can remove him entirely. I started to shake. Not from fear, but because I knew I had crossed a line. There was no turning back now. But the final blow had yet to come. I navigated to the folder labeled finance_TED_2012. Inside were bank statements, Excel files, and investment authorization contracts, all pointing to a single name, Ravenson Holdings LLC. A shell company registered in Delaware. A state known for its lenient corporate laws. The listed agent, Mark Rutherford, that is, my stepfather. My mother had once claimed that my biological father lost everything due to poor investments. But the records in this folder revealed that funds had been siphoned off from their joint marital account, in small increments, just weeks before she filed for divorce. All transferred into accounts under Ravenson's name. I discovered an email between my mother and Mark, dated May 15, 2012. The subject line read, "Asset handling progress." In the message, my mother wrote, "If everything goes according to plan, he'll leave court empty-handed. Don't leave any traces. Use your brother's address, like last time." I sat there, in the damp laundry room, gripping the mouse until my knuckles turned white. The words before me were no longer mere characters. They were confessions. Every suspicion I had was confirmed. The message was fabricated. The entire scheme to strip custody, seize assets, and push my father into society's shadows, meticulously orchestrated. And both of them, my mother and Mark, were the masterminds and lead actors. I didn't scream, break things, or cry. I simply took a deep breath and began backing up the data. I copied the entire folder onto an encrypted USB drive. Then I printed 3 copies. One for myself, one for the attorney, and one I saved for brunch. A story they had constructed over 11 years. From the evidence photo, to the narrative of an unstable father, even blaming the kindest man I've ever known. All would face consequences. I left the laundry room at 3 o'clock in the morning. That night, there was no hum of the dryer, only the ticking clock and the silent moonlight filtering through the door's crack. I looked into the bathroom mirror and saw my reflection. Not a forsaken child, but someone holding justice in her hands. The next day, I sent a message to my father, just 2 lines. "I found it. The file will reach the attorney by Monday." He replied, "I always believed in you." I closed the phone. For the first time in years, my heart was at peace. And I knew. It was time for their masks to fall. No more concealment, no more pretense. Only the truth. And its consequences. I had promised my father that once I uncovered the truth, I would no longer remain silent. And I kept my word. On Monday morning, I sat in my attorney's office. Mrs. Claire Hansen, a former prosecutor with eyes as sharp as forged steel. When I slid the thick file across to her, she didn't ask anything. She simply turned each page, contemplative, amidst the ticking wall clock. Then she looked up. Her voice low but as clear as a knife's edge. "Victoria, this is an organized fraud case. And I believe it's time we begin." I signed the lawsuit that very day. We filed the case in Spokane County Court with comprehensive evidence, the draft of the fabricated message, internal emails between Cynthia and Mark, financial documents showing embezzlement from joint assets, records of the shell company Ravenson Holdings LLC, and notably, a money laundering trail through 3 intermediary accounts. The lawsuit specified 2 main demands. Restoration of my father's, Richard Wallace's, reputation by invalidating all falsified evidence previously used in the divorce proceedings. Full compensation from Cynthia Hartwell and Mark Rutherford for fraudulent actions, legal manipulation, and asset misappropriation. News spread rapidly. 2 weeks later, my mother received a court summons. She opened the letter while standing in the kitchen, and, according to neighbors, she screamed so loudly that she dropped red wine onto the newly replaced white carpet. Mark immediately contacted the family attorney. But just days later, that attorney also declined to represent them after reviewing the case files. I wasn't present at the initial hearing. I left that to my father and the attorney. But I attended the sentencing, sitting in the second row, behind my mother and Mark. She was dressed impeccably, still wearing the pearl earrings I once retrieved from under the chair and returned to her, but her eyes were different, no longer disdainful, only filled with the fear of exposure. Mark resembled a ghost. His face pale, hands trembling so much he couldn't open a water bottle. The judge took 20 minutes to read the verdict. I didn't avert my gaze for even a second. The court declared. The message document was intentionally fabricated. Utilizing that message to manipulate the custody decision constituted severe judicial fraud. Financial transactions evidenced illegal asset transfers through a shell company, aiming to exclude Richard Wallace from the divorce asset division. Inclusions: restoration of my father's honor and legal records. Mandatory restitution from Cynthia Hartwell and Mark Rutherford for the misappropriated funds, totaling $1,400,000, plus penalty interest and legal fees. Liquidation of real estate and personal assets to fulfill the compensation obligations. Mark attempted to stand and object, but his attorney tugged at his sleeve. Cynthia merely bowed her head, lips pressed tightly until they turned white. I had never seen her so silent. 2 months later, the house where I grew up, the place where I was relegated to the laundry room, where I watched my mother turn coldness into law, was publicly listed at nearly half the market price. It was purchased by a young newlywed couple. They replaced all the furnishings, erasing every trace of the deceivers who once lived there. Cynthia and Mark moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in the city's northern industrial zone. According to the private investigator I hired to continue monitoring, the apartment had leaking pipes and no dishwasher. A week after the verdict, I received a final message from Ryan. "This has gone too far. You should know when to stop." I didn't reply. And a few days later, Ryan's accounts vanished. No more Instagram. No more Facebook. No email address. As if he had never existed. Some said I was cruel. That I had torn my family apart. I don't deny it. My family was shattered, but not by me. By lies, theft, and years of making a child believe that the only person who loved her was a monster. I merely opened the curtain, let the light in, and allowed everything to crumble, as it needed to. One afternoon, my father invited me to his new home. A small house with a lavender garden and a wooden porch with a rocking chair. He handed me a cup of coffee, then sat down, silent for a long while. Then he said, "Lauren Victoria, I know you didn't do this for me." I nodded. "You did it for yourself." He smiled, his voice as gentle as wind through leaves. "And I've never been prouder of anyone." I looked at the sunset sky through the window, and after many years, I felt truly part of something right. Not the old family, but justice and truth. There are mornings when I wake up and it takes a few seconds to remember that I no longer live in that laundry room. No more humming dryer, no more musty smell mixed with bleach, no more silent meals under scrutinizing eyes. Now, I wake to the aroma of roasted coffee and the chimes swaying on the porch in the morning breeze. My father's small house in Spokane isn't luxurious, but it's warm and breathable. We don't talk much about the past. It's unnecessary. Every handshake when he pours me coffee in the morning, every question, "What would you like to eat today?" is enough to make up for the years of separation. No more burden of pleasing anyone, no more feeling like the extra in my own family. I get to be myself. No formalities, no pretending to be strong. My father tends the garden, and I work freelance from home. Mostly as an investigative assistant for insurance companies. Still, I keep my investigator certification. Not to pursue cases anymore, but to remind myself that I once stood up. Once and for all. But that peace did not last long. One April afternoon, I received a message from an old high school friend. "Victoria, did you just post something on Facebook? It looks intense." I had not used Facebook since the trial. A gut feeling told me something was off. I checked. And just as I suspected, a Facebook account with my name and profile picture. But it was fake. The latest post was a lengthy write-up, accompanied by an old photo of my father with a venomous caption. "As not who everyone thinks he is. I was manipulated into protecting the man who abused my mother." Other posts delved into family matters, constructing a narrative that I was mentally unstable, brainwashed by my biological father, and trying to destroy the family out of jealousy toward my younger brother. The words were sharp as razors, and I recognized that writing style. It could only be Cynthia. She once had everything: the house, the money, custody. When she lost them, she could not accept it, and as a final move, she used social media as a battleground to reclaim public opinion. Perhaps she believed I would be hurt, would react, would lose control, but she forgot one thing. I was no longer the 12-year-old girl who believed everything she said. I forwarded all the evidence: the IP address, access device, post-edit history, to Attorney Henson. In less than 3 weeks, she filed a lawsuit for impersonation, defamation, and online harassment. During the hearing, Cynthia sat beside her new lawyer, a young, clumsy individual, clearly hired in haste. When the judge requested technical tracing, our side presented a report from a cybersecurity expert, detailing the IP address of the posts matched the Wi-Fi network registered at the apartment where Cynthia resided. Access history showed activity from the same laptop, specifically the one she used to stream online Pilates classes. Browser history included a search: how to impersonate an account without being detected. The judge did not need much time. He ordered Cynthia to issue a public apology on the platform she used for defamation, and prohibited her from contacting me in any online form for 3 years. Any violations would be subject to criminal prosecution. In the courtroom, she still tried to cry, but no one saw her as a victim anymore. Even Mark, the man who once bowed at her feet, did not show up. This time, she was alone. I stepped out of the courthouse with a strange feeling. Not triumphant, not joyful, just an emptiness gradually being filled with peace. I was no longer angry. I did not need revenge. I just wanted freedom. Freedom from manipulation. From the pressure to forgive. From the burden of expectations never meant for me. That evening, my father brought out 2 glasses of wine. "For today?" he asked. "No," I smiled. "For us, finally being able to live without looking back." We clinked glasses. The sound was as light as an unspoken blessing. I did not write a blog post, did not go on a podcast to tell my story. I declined interview invitations from 3 local TV channels. I quietly closed my investigator account, changed my phone number, and set my alarm for 6:30 every morning, the exact time my father and I go out to the porch to water the plants. I live. Not because I need to prove anything, but because, finally, I get to live true to myself. No apologies, no explanations, no bowing. My name is Victoria Wallace. And from now on, I am no longer a shadow in someone else's story. I am the one writing the rest. Victoria's story is a testament that truth, no matter how long buried, will find its way back to the light. Disregarded, slandered, and deprived since childhood, she did not let the past define her. Instead of seeking revenge, she chose peace, freedom, and dignity. In a world full of deceit and manipulation, Victoria demonstrates that courage, perseverance, and faith in justice can help us reclaim our voice, honor, and the life that should have been ours. But what do you think about Victoria's journey? Was she right to choose truth over silence? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel to continue discovering touching and meaningful stories about family life.